Hi,
Hi,
Nikki.
Eric. How are you?
Good. I've been offline for about a month. So
Have you had some time out?
well, it's the traditional August lull in France. And then, so when you're in Europe or in France, whether you're on vacation or not, it's sort of like you're disconnected because everybody else is gone. But yeah, I did take some time off. Was up in Norfolk and then Somerset and then the south of France. Now back at my desk.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah,
How are you, Wenjing?
I'm good. I also took the last week off. We're camping in Nevada.
oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, some heat,
Not too,
dust, and yeah,
does it get cold at night and then just hot in the day? Is that how it works?
that's how it works. This year it's not too cold at night, but still hot during the day.
Okay,
We There's a larger group who, when earlier they had storms, like thunderstorms and muddy as well. But we went there a little bit late, so we missed all of that stuff.
good, good timing.
Yeah. Oh, great to see you back.
Great. Yeah, good to see you both. Ready to hit the ground running.
I don't know about you, but it already feels like I've done about 2 fiscal years in the first 6 months of this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been an extraordinary year, hasn't it?
it's a good sign.
It is, but I think everyone's like adaptability and resilience and agility is being tested, and uh, certainly this group is not found wanting.
Yeah, I know. I feel that it's kind of we're at that period where people have been building for so long, and there's a lot of pressure to deliver and show a return on investments. And
100%.
you
We're
know,
in that kind of trough of disillusionment. There's going to be a winnowing out. Uh,
yeah, pushing pushing through. Talking about AI, I read that AI investment outpaced entire consumer spending in the U.S. So far this year.
Yeah, something like that. I also got what is it? So this is the one reported. The building, what the building industry, they are building more or spending more money building um, for AI data centers than for human offices. So I guess all these milestones, but people are always worried that whether this building spending going to continue, but so far seems is still going. At least this year still going. This quarter, okay, still going.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
just it's the investments are just shifting focus, and it's just I just thought that investing in AI, that's a huge. I mean, everybody's placing enormous bets, and if we didn't have this AI boom, where
Yeah.
would we be?
And when we first time we heard people say we're gonna raise $1 trillion, it really like a now it's getting quite close. Yeah.
Well,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I thought to myself, COVID was when we transitioned to the world of trillions, because before it was like billions, billions, this, billions, this, and then COVID came around and these rescue packages or injections were like $2 trillion and just automatically.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're
Yeah,
now in the world of trillions.
yeah. I don't know how people keeping those numbers.
When you think about how much a trillion is,
Yeah.
it's it's like that's a lot of billions.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And all of a sudden, these companies in a few months of a span added another trillion. It's like,
Yeah. Hyperspeed.
yeah, yeah.
The flip side of that is you're also having the financial people saying, if there's going to be a major recession, it's going to be because the AI, shall we say,
Oh,
overenthusiasm is going to crash.
The
oh,
bubble.
I'm sure there will be at least one, right? I think that's
You mean
we
like
just
the
don't know when it's gonna hit.
you mean like the MIT article that came out that said 95% of corporate AI projects are failing?
Yeah,
The
they don't
MIT
scale.
numbers I took it very suspiciously. The MIT numbers for the both for pro AI and for sort of the naysayer, both are in MIT, and there have one at least a proven fraud coming out of MIT. So I wouldn't trust it too much.
It is. I just know that it's caused some real angst within folks, working on the stuff at MIT. It's like, their own folks are saying, our names are on this paper coming out saying, yeah, all these things are failing. So anyway, I brought that up because it's like, wow, this is we're in a super high froth point of AI right now.
Yeah, yeah. And there are uh, these investment theories or decisions being made based on these assumptions, and people are taking very different assumptions. So whatever the conclusion, right, if you make one set of assumption, you would come up with completely different numbers than other people who use more traditional way of accounting these numbers. All right. I guess I should have put let me see. Oh, here's my thing. I should have put the agenda on. I wasn't checking the Discord channel this morning. Do we have any agenda changes or suggestions? This is what I put in yesterday anyway. So the August is over, so we need to have a more proper agenda. And so today I put on essentially two things. And then I heard that there's a LFDT maintainer day. And so also I think the member summit too, so maybe that as well. Then two agendas. One, I can do a little quick report on the progress we are making on this specification. There are quite a few implementations already, seems like, and then we want to finish this soon for AI agent protocols over TSP, and specifically, I think it's TMCP, TA2A, and potentially others. There's a lot of different variations. So this will be a proposal to say, hey, among these options, we think this is the most well thought out plan to actually achieve trust over for these agent protocols. So that's one thing. Part of the delay is on sort of arguing about what the problems are, why, those things. But the technical aspects are relatively straightforward, I think. And then the TOIP symposium, and then maybe potentially same time we can talk about the LDT's member summit and maintainer days. So that's what I have on this would that be a good agenda for today?
Yeah, the last two action items at the bottom, just save 5 minutes for those. Or 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether anyone's prepared to, so I thought it was leave some time, potentially we can then catch up next week.
Well, I do want to take 2 minutes for the trust framework, and we can do that at the
Beautiful.
or do it.
Okay. Yeah. We probably should have more time than the 5 minutes as well.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let me see. So let me do the antitrust policy notice and also ToIP, trust over IPs, IPR policy. Here, there's a link. Our working group follow very traditional um, uh, working group IPR policy there. But those are the link if you need to check. The Let me see the news. I don't think anybody knew for first time in the meeting.
Maybe Aaron is first time I'm seeing Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Yeah, hi Aaron, welcome.
Welcome.
Do you want to introduce to the group here? You are still muted if you are speaking, but if you are busy for the moment, we can come back and do that. To give you the opportunity to introduce your interest and what kind of a topic you're interested in. Otherwise, I will continue. Then on the news to share, let's see. German, are you still? Oh yeah, German. So I didn't spend time since yesterday on the diffs working group. Would you be able to share a little on that?
All I know is I need to get. I've seen a draft charter that I believe they are approving sometime. The DIF steering committee is approving sometime this week.
I see.
I don't know precisely when their that steering committee meeting is. And they have, I know there are two things in front of them. One is Kim shared that charter of the trusted AI agents working group, which I know Wenjing Yu and Andor have talked about. This is called the somewhat different emphasis of this working group and that one. But definitely, I think some sort of healthy overlap slash synergy. The other thing they're deciding on is, do they want to be joint participant in the new decentralized trust graph working group? So those are the two decisions that I know that they're supposed to be making this week. But I don't think either one's particularly controversial. I expect both will be approved. At which point, LFDT wants to put out a blog post about all three of these working groups, right? And to sort of shine a light on the work that's going on around basically trust in AI agents, from all three perspectives: this working group, the DIF working group, and the decentralized trust graph working group. So whoever wants to help with that blog post, I have a action item to basically get a straw man out there, and I've been promising to do it since for a week now, and I still haven't done it because I'm trying to get out the first person white paper. But no later than this weekend, I plan to get a draft out, and so whoever wants to, I assume the chairs of the of these groups all want to participate in that.
Yeah, and I think it's the blog post will be important one because we want to how do we tell the story, like where they should I know contribute their time with, and well, we'll see, but that will be the difficult part.
Yep, I agree. It's like I'm just yeah, I don't, I know there were discussions about the two working groups, but I think we try and be as accurate as we can about what each working group is going to be concentrating on, so folks can make that decision. I have no
Good.
panacea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions and comments on the first three, right? The audience all related about this, yeah.
Nikki raises an interesting question in the chat.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to speak to that, Nikki.
I just wonder about it. It slightly concerns me, but it's the community trending and all the focus online, of course, is agents because of their levels of autonomy and decision-making power. But most implementations that are used at scale and commercially are, sets of data, algorithms, processes and teams that train the models and curate the data and so on and so forth. I would characterize those as systems, and agents just as a subset of that. So it's just a question in my mind. I don't want to derail the conversation, but I wonder if anyone else has sort of thought that through, and if maybe
Yeah.
if there's we're missing a trick there. We're kind of betting on a future that may or may not come to pass.
So I can share um, my reasoning, at least sort of when we trying to pick a particular topic to work on. There are, if you recall, in the early discussions in this working group, we had a graph sort of showing the entire um, ecosystem or workflow of how AI systems, from the sort of producing the model side to applying them to applications, etc. Right? There's a lot of areas that we potentially can contribute, and the trust of IP way of design and the stack, etc. I think will be very useful in many of those areas. There is a graph like that. Maybe we could make a better presentation stand alone with that. That would be a good topic. Maybe Eric in the trust framework, for example, we could also produce something like that. I think um, uh, we have several versions of that graph. I picked to work on the agent, or more specifically agent protocol side, mainly because we thought that is a that is a bigger problem that the TSP did, and these lower layer components are more eagerly needed, because autonomy increases the risk factor, and second, agents, or the way we describing agents, means that there will be a lot of different components linked together. So you can see the networking effect is coming in. This is where AI starting to link with other parts of our system, and that whole interaction or behavior in the aggregate is not well understood, and the control security aspect of that whole complex system is ill-defined at the moment. So it seems like at the right moment that the trust of IP stack is badly needed. So it will be to me, it will be a good opportunity if we need to pick a topic. Initially, this will be a great topic to work on. So that's my personal perspective. I'll let others jump in as well. So Eric.
Yeah. I agree. I think the other benefit of at least focusing on agents for this year is that you know the work that we do, no matter what how AI develops in whatever form, I think what we're doing will be applicable. And agents are, I think the other benefit is that agents are, they resonate, especially now, with humans, because humans think that there's something they can interact with, whereas a system is a lot more invisible and you can't touch it as easily. And so I think it helps bring in the agent, sorry, the human interaction with AI a little bit more. I think up until now, it's people interacting via a chat bot or a query, chat GPT, et cetera. But I think we're building on all the stuff that's the AI systems. And so none of that will be lost. And we're leveraging all the work that's done in the system level, and anything that we do now, I think will be applicable in whatever iteration that this goes. That's my opinion.
Neil?
Yeah, well, putting on a hospitality and travel hat, which I'm increasingly doing these days, what I'm learning is that the right model is for an agent is literally a travel agent. And a travel agent is the interface into the system that is the massive convolution of chaotic system of all the travel services, all the travel providers. I mean, the glue. So I may talk to different agents who've got different track records or specialize in different, shall we say, vacationers or business travelers or whatever else. You're certainly seeing companies in the hospitality travel group that are looking at AI, and certainly one of the big ones that we saw a new reveal a couple of weeks ago over at a hospitality and travel SIG presentation is, which is very ambitious, is they're focusing entirely on being agents for corporations, so business travel. So in other words, you sign up with them, you're pairing up, somebody's got a preference package of, here's the corporate policy on travel for all aspects of it. That may be married to the work I'm working on, which is what are me as a business traveler's preferences and needs. And they're putting in there and emphasizing taking what, the directions from corporate versus, the individual travel plans and preferences and pulling that together and then putting it into the huge machine that is sorting all that stuff out, making all the bookings and everything else. So yeah, very much to Nikki's comment there that you've got, the systems at the back end are big monsters, which are amusingly, as people are going, how far back some of these back end systems go? And they're not disappearing anytime soon. So you've got layers of smarts that are being put in front of them with very different roles, is what I'm hearing out of the travel industry and where they're going.
Yeah. I will add maybe one more point. The agent is one way of building systems, and this may become the more dominant way of building systems. The good news here is that at least people are really interested in a standardized way of different components. How do you compose them into a system? And some components are what we call agents. Not all components are, right? And these protocols we are working on are potentially becoming the connecting tissues of these components. And therefore, I think this is representing a particular way of doing this, or architecture of composing these more complex systems that people can use. With standardization allows us, I think, to really have an impact on how this should be built. A completely monolithic systems, one company builds, we have relatively, low or no influence on how that's built. So that's another angle of thinking about this. Yeah, Nikki again.
Thank you for explaining. I understand it on two levels now. Number one, the kind of inclusive design practice, which is take the edge case, take the extreme user, And in this case, it's a machine as opposed to a human being, but that is perfect logic for great design. The other thing that I think it really demonstrates is the quality and the applicability of the stack. So you're taking something that's very complex, even autonomous as a machine, and you're you're applying the stack and all the work that's been done in trust over IP, and it's working, starting with these two standards that the TMCP and TA2A. So my other reflection is that this market is moving so fast that if you don't try and get ahead of it, you're not going to have any impact at all. So thanks for indulging me, guys. I appreciate you've had these conversations before, and it really helps me kind of get my head into the space. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. It's a great conversation to really clarify why we work on this, and what I think our ambition or goal should be. So let me move to, maybe I don't need 25 minutes, but maybe 10 minutes or so. The some of the draft spec that I'm been working on. So this is, let me see. Yeah, this is one. Okay. So this is, I just want to show roughly the structure of this spec. So the first portion is a problem statement and motivation. And I've been trying to summarize like what exactly the problem we want to solve and trying to see if we missed anything. So the description or the narrative goes like this. First of all, we see the need and benefit of protocols like MCP and A2A. And again, I'm trying to emphasize none of them is kind of a done deal. They are very fast moving. There's many new proposals being made, but we're going to use them as at least as examples for now.
Why is this slowing down?
And so all those protocols essentially, when it
Oh.
comes to security and privacy and trust, they rely on existing web model. So specifically, or you can say the web stack is is the current best practice. And so that really comes down to the recommendation today would be to say, oh, do your best. Basically say, hey, we have these tools developed for web, and you should follow the quote unquote best practice, right? And we want to summarize what's missing in that scenario. So I have three big bullet items, see if we capture the essential part. One is that endpoint identity is a domain account centric. So this is basically say you log into something depending on what that account is. It's tied to an account, right? And so in each session, we say what that current web stack provides, why it's a problem for agents, and then what the consequence will be with those problems. So the second bullet is about delegate authorization. So this is OAuth. OAuth, so first one is identity, is tied to an account. The second one is authorization. It's done by OAuth style workflow, and that is a token based. Token is essentially do a authentication and then give you a time limited authorization of something. And that model have well documented risks. That's and I'm hoping I'm capturing these risks um, adequately. But anyway, so issues relate to how the authorization works and why those are problems and what are kind of security risks. And also like one big problem is the authorization is very tied to time. And so it leaves a lot of room for the either over authorizing or very difficult to do things, because every single time you would have to go repeat the same thing again and again, and you really can't build a lot of long-term relationship with such a system. And so that's the second bullet. This maybe I need to pick a better word on that. Content is more of a yeah,
So-
message is a better word. So it is a um, it's a auto band in a sense that you authorize or authentic a client to the server. It doesn't guarantee that individual messages or content or artifacts you're carrying have verifiable origin. So this is a very point-to-point between client-server authorization. And so that model have its own inherent problems to the thing, whatever you are authorizing is tied to a session. And the session, goes away and all that disappears. There's nothing accumulated. So so that's the third point. The fourth one is on metadata privacy. This one I think is relatively simple. So we've been working on this, and we can summarize why this is an issue and what the current methods of solving them. It's not very satisfactory. So TSP, I think, is the first one systematically provide a method for us to do that. So that's the last one is come back to identify again interoperability. And again, this interoperability is very fragile. It's kind of a lot of patchwork, right? And these because of that, the credentials, even people adopting credential cannot be bound to a long-term identifier. And so the use of credentials really becomes kind of a, without that, the benefit again, we lose the benefit of most of it, right? And there you have a long-term identifier. You are only one way of doing tokens in a way. So I think that's a problem. We want a formalized way of identifying interoperability, and therefore you could use that as a baseline and build more durable applications on top of it. And that's the last point. And then the follow-up section talk about how TSP closes these gaps. And then we provide a brief introduction to it. I'm going to skip over this so we can capture the other section. So the other section then describes the solution. How to run agent protocol over TSP, and this there's several aspects. I don't know whether this is a good order, but basically we say here is the overall requirement to running such protocols over TSP, and more specifically to these MCP and A2A, they both use JSON RPC. So we describe, this is a very relatively straightforward description of JSON RPC, how you would run that over TSP. And with that, both MCP and A2A would be able to run over TSP. So those are the technical description, this fourth section of it. I thought it would be good to also provide a way to do the credential issuance and presentation protocol. So this is the credential exchange, the triangle. So this would be essentially showing that you would be able to then immediately implement those on top of these TMCP and TA2A systems very quickly. So maybe that would be good to be included in this specification as well. More examples would become application we thought we'll leave outside, and then we provide some discussions on security and privacy considerations. So anyway, that's what I have on the outline. See if anybody have feedbacks and how we better to do this. Eric.
That's great. So this last part, this is saying that now you can trust an agent to show up with a credential or transfer your credential to another agent. Is that what you're saying with this, or what's the focus of the credential issuance?
Yeah, the credential issuance would be, for instance, there's one prototype we are implementing right now is a MCP server that would be the for example, do credential verification. So for instance, right, you have a travel agent website, and the website or the service may say, hey, in order for you to do payment, I need to check your secondary or application specific credentials. For instance, I need your verify with a um, uh, some authority issued ID for this particular part of the operation. And that checking would be done by a server in CP's terminology. So the client would then say, well, what do you need in order for me to do this action? And the server will say, I need to show, can you show me one of these IDs, for instance? And then you do the presentation. So that is essentially the presentation protocol, right? What we typically call it. Instead of between humans, this will be between these software components.
And
humans as well, yeah.
And is this like you can have an agent saying, I have the right to present these credentials, or I have the right to present these credentials to interact with you, and I'm acting on behalf of my controller, and I can also present their credentials to you to prove that? Is it
Yeah.
both ways? I'm not, is it?
Yeah. So again, let's get some feedback, see whether that would be a good. So that would be called what is that? That would be so that's basically authorization, or we call a delegation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So delegation authorization described earlier,
yeah,
probably over here, because these are very generic.
right.
And this is getting into sort of the protocol. So if we want to do a delegation, you will basically say, well, can you show me, your what do you call power of attorney or something like that, right? So there will be a document basically you will need to show.
Yeah.
The other flow that I'm not sure whether we should get into right now is that in that flow, there's a lot of requirement in some cases for human in the loop. So OAuth is giving you a particular way of doing this so that there is a opportunity. It's not mandated, but most of people implement that you will pop up with a yes or no thing. Well, authorized. Do you agree to the human interface? And we probably want to issue like how would you do that as well. And so I think structure wise, do we want to, for instance, do that here as a separate description?
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, is this a use case example, or is this like part of the spec that says, I'm trying to figure out how it works into the spec that or does the spec enable trusted credential issuance and presentations with agents as part of the flow?
Yeah, so I'm just want to note here, just I'm sure that So we could stand out basically separately, do it clearly here. And I think that probably, because that's what most of the people talk about, OAuth is talking about. Usually is that workflow, right? You see those diagrams going, these parallel events, 4 or 5 different entities, and each where the flow goes and
Yeah.
how that workflow works. So maybe that would be good to have its own standalone chapter describing that. Essentially, we're saying how, look, let's say if you implement these over TSP in this particular way, then how would you go do these things?
Yeah. Okay.
These are the goals we want to get to. And these two are purely examples.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
and potentially they can become the example. But right now we would just say, well, if you want to do that. For other protocols, they could follow the description or the recipe in this section and do it as well.
Right.
But these are coming to how you practically, how do you actually implement those policies?
Because we're following on in the first part of the paper, and sorry, Stephen, I see your hands up. The first part of the paper, you're saying that it's sort of the response is figure it out, and then here we're saying, well, we figured it out for you.
We figured out that this is a way to do it.
Yeah.
So these are lesser in the sense of like you must do this particular way, because once you have the long-term identifier and the TSP layer authenticity guarantees,
Mhm.
you could come up with variations of these workflows. Workflows are looser. You don't need everybody to follow exactly the same. If that makes sense, right?
Yes.
So OAuth is simply say you could, this is the tools you go talk. This is the language you go talk. It doesn't say how you exactly need to say.
Yeah.
And so most likely we would be able to, because this, even though we call them protocols, becomes a very simple messaging designs. Essentially, what is the message going that way? What's the messaging coming back? What's information we would recommend you to include? But you could design numerous ways yourself. The applications could attach new things to it, etc. So I think because everybody is looking for the answer to this, we should present at least one. We don't have to say you must be strictly in this format and in this language.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the idea. Stephen.
Yeah, so for myself, sorry, it would be it would help clarify things if there was like an as is and to be diagram. And if you can go through the as is from the end to end and show in each of the different protocols the points of failure. And then in the to be, you can show how this is getting rid of those points of failure. And my other question too is if I don't know if it's going to be out of scope of this document, but is there an assumption that we're using carry and ACDC? Because earlier it's mentioned, OAuth and centralized identifiers, and that would be probably points of failures from certain people's point of view. And if we're talking about like credential issuance via ACDC, and we're talking TSP with carry identifiers, it would be helpful if we were to show, I want to send a message to you, or I want a message with my AI. Where do these identifiers come from? How do we know who they are, if they're legit? I mean, if my identifier is steven@ibm.com, you have to assume that, that's not easy to spoof, maybe. But if it's going to be a decentralized identifier, then it means nothing to anybody. How do we prove that this is actually the right sender and the right receiver? So I don't know if it's out of scope, because every TSP conversation, we just talk about the messaging that goes back and forth, and the prerequisite seems to a requirement is going to be you have this identifier. But I don't know if we ever talk about how did we get?
Yeah. So a open question is the identifiers. I guess this is the question of do we, say you must use this type of identifier, narrow down to some type or narrow down to one specific. I don't know how narrow we want to
I
make
mean,
it
it's
to.
good if you generalize, and then it's also nice if you say, here is a concrete example of how to do it, right? Like if we talk about workshops for a
Ah.
symposium, you don't want to say, pick your own identifier and come back to me in 10 minutes, right? If we just say, this is how you get an identifier, you don't have to do it this way. This is the way we're doing it for demonstration purposes. And usually that becomes a standard because if
Yeah,
everybody
usually. So I would say so one approach would be we go talk about identifiers and we say here is one, and let's say did web VH is one. Or we could say two. I don't know precisely, or we can go to different types and it gets really long. So this is a exercise we've done in the TSP spec. Eventually, we basically describe a few examples. But you're absolutely right. Every single conversation comes down to that you do need to have a specific one. So therefore, you can actually explain how these benefits come about. Because you pick a wrong one or random one, many of these solutions don't work, right? Um, and so that's a dilemma. Is I don't know. I um,
But
let me,
I mean, honestly, if you can't show it works, then what? Then it's just another document, right? In the end of
correct. Yeah.
the end of the day, if you want to say T, put a T in front of everything, like Nikki was saying, right? Like, so let's
Yeah.
just show how the T in front of this in this use case
Yeah.
works. And we
Yeah.
plugged all the problems that were the existing as is problems, and this is a solution. You may not like it, you may want to choose your own did or whatever. That's your business, but I
This is a one solution.
closing the
Exactly.
loop here, you could say as is or as it was or as as it is today, what we're proposing, and here's the proof. And once you have here's the proof, it'll be hard for people to sit there and throwing tomatoes at it.
Exactly. So because otherwise this whole portion is just open for numerous questions and it's not easy to answer because each one has its own right, its own strengths and problems. Um, so maybe I will do a poll whether did web VH would be a good point to start. And we don't have to limit it to one, but whether that would be a good option to start.
I think it's a good option to start just because it's a fairly flexible method that is quite approachable and understandable. Plus, it's getting a lot of momentum, but that's just one perspective.
It's also in the open source implementation, the first one that we actually support. So so that's the one we could basically the language will say definitely there could be many types, different ones. We're gonna go specify at least one how this will work.
You don't want to throw in carry?
Uh, absolutely. So we can put two of them. So that would be AID.
Mhm.
We should check with the carry group whether which variation they would most
Sure.
likely.
But then you could carry over the credentials with ACDC, right? There is a flow.
Yes, there will be a
Problem with,
flow that is
I mean,
connected.
the problem maybe with carry is it may not be as accessible as a did web, but this I don't know. I'm not in that deep in the weeds.
I mean, we are in a spec. We're specifying if we want to specify carry AID as another one, then we need to walk through the whole process, basically go over where the potential risks are and the potential questions may be at least as thoroughly. So maybe the suggestion rather than slow us down is we do in the draft, we do start with one, and the second one we follow up with it.
Sure.
But this one is easier to explain
Could also
for
finish the did and then hand it over to the carry group and say, you implement carry.
exactly. That way we would have we also need them to really start to participating constructing this. So it will take some time. So maybe we start with a relatively straightforward and simple explanation of one. I think that would explain the whole method we are specifying here clearly. And then replacing or using a alternative DID or other identifier would be relatively simple. So that would be like my preference. It will be go do that first. Make sure we can publish this as quickly as possible with one that can address most of the issues. And then we can alternatively say, here are other options that potentially more people can work on how that the new identifier will fit into this spec.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. Great questions.
Wenjing,
Yeah.
if we're outside of our community, let's say the DID community, and you go to these developers, what kind of identifiers are they using right now to connect agents?
So that would be the if you're familiar with OpenAPI, I think it would be the API keys.
So is using API keys as identifiers, is
That's
that
what you use for authentication. And there is no strict sense of our definition of identifier. There's no long-term identifier, right? So the long-term identifier is in your account. So you can think of the key is a method to open the door, but the actual identity it's a vague model. You may consider they are collecting your personal information because
Right.
that's your real identity.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you can recover because they have a some kind of a model being built around you.
Right.
And that model can be in many different forms. They can ask you birthdays, they can do second factor, they can uh, trick down to email. That's what we call ad hoc.
Right.
Exactly how it's done, each account works slightly differently, even
Okay.
though they generally follow the same recipe, right?
Okay. So for adoption, I'm thinking if we say, all right, let's see, a path to volume, adoption at scale, what people are doing now, is there a path for that? Or is part of the path saying, you're not doing it right now, it's not working, and you have to get into DIDs? Is that kind of what we're saying? Or can we say, use what you're using now, use your email identifiers? A lot of agents are being assigned email addresses so they can interact internally with their teams, or so.
I think the proper answer is yes, you can keep using your email addresses. The identifier doesn't matter as much. The identifier is just a handle. You just need to make sure that the name is unique. So in the TSP spec, we give a UIN as a general purpose format. And if we pick an email, you can easily define a UIN. The essential thing is just a prefix and the email address maybe following up, right? You could potentially put some internal identifiers behind it too. So that will be your acceptable identifier. It's up to the system to build the supporting or decision-making data behind it.
Yeah.
And that for DID, you have a DID document and how do you verify, etc. So if
Yeah.
you wanted to use the email, then somebody need to kind of specify, well, they have it today. A common one is that you send an email to that and then you return with a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a random number generator sends an email and then you return with that number correctly within some time frame. So that will be their verification protocol. And that protocol clearly can work with TSP as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if the what's happening now and what is the sort of the lightest lift for them to be able to implement T A2A or T MCP.
Yeah.
Or does that not even make sense and say, listen, the lightest lift isn't going to cut it, and that's part of the problem. We need to.
It's in a way we are discussing same question. So if we basically say here's did with VH how it works,
Yeah.
and we're basically recommending, hey, maybe don't overthink it, just implement this one. It's relatively easy to implement.
Okay.
They can convert from their current system to work with that.
Okay.
Maybe that's the like implicit answer to that question.
Understand. Okay. Thank you.
Because otherwise, very general, you can talk a lot of things and people will figure out new ways. I
Right.
think that once they start looking one, they will figure out new ways to do it.
Right. Okay.
And it's not too difficult, but the difficult portion is how do they convince themselves that this is, fitting for their requirement and fitting for their particular application, etc.
Okay.
And their user behavior, whether people will hate it if you introduce these random looking strings, people may have comfort in the email address.
Yeah.
And there's numerous reasons why people still do those things, right? Because they feel comfortable.
Mhm.
If you introduce a random string, people get scared what that thing is, right?
Okay.
So, so those are, I think, we may talk about like in the security and privacy considerations, but that would be out of scope for the spec itself.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think the other question I have is other than credentials and delegation, I don't know, anything else that's important enough we should be part of this first spec as well.
Can you put the link? Is it shareable at this time?
It's not quite shareable yet,
Okay.
but I want to make it so very quickly.
Okay.
So even if some of the sections I'm not quite complete yet, I want to, once the structure looks sound, I think I will then just either submit to it to the draft as a 0.1 draft or yeah, make it shareable that way.
Mhm. Mhm. With the 1 minute we have left, can I just ask if I'd like to get the task force on the trustworthy AI agent framework in place. And
Sorry, the time goes a lot
yeah,
fast.
that's fine. But just to see if Mondays or Tuesdays seem to be a decent date for anybody who's interested. Because that, for me, that seems to be the only two dates that are gonna work, days, a Monday or a Tuesday. So, yeah. And I guess what I'll do is, I need to follow up on the charter and finalizing that. Okay, thanks, Nikki. And then put a poll out to see, what's the best time slot. But I'd like to get that task force up running pretty soon.
Yeah. And then very quickly the symposium. So I thought we should at least do a presentation, potentially a workshop as well on those 2 days. And then the LFDT is organizing, it's not in the urgent things, it's in January next year. Last year they were in San Francisco. They usually have a maintainer day and then have a member summit. So the maintainer day is for developers, member summit for the customers or the rest. And this year is in January, it's in New York. So that's anyway, just no urgent. We don't have to discuss right now.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. Very interesting.
Then we run out of time.
Yeah. Are we back to a weekly schedule or every other
We are
week?
back to weekly schedule now.
Good.
And then you remind me, would Eric, will you be able to chair next, or Stephen able to chair next week?
Yeah, I'll be here, I think.
I'll be traveling in different time zone. So this last goes in. I'm going to the September one now. Last time was in Paris in the spring, now in the fall. So it will be very inconvenient time for me. So I
Where
may
where are you
not be able to join. I'm sorry.
where are you going?
So this goes in conference
Oh,
in
Hangzhou.
this time in Hangzhou, as it's September 13 and 14.
All right.
Yeah, I will be talking about this together with, I think, people from W3C want to talk about something called AMP, very similar. There's one more. There's three agent protocol presentations there. So, I will be meeting some of the alternative solutions people come up with.
Awesome. Look forward to having you reporting back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And enjoy Hangzhou. Okay,
We're good.
gotta go. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. And
right.
Eric, if you could chair next week, then we don't have to cancel it.
Okay, that's good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
You.
Bye-bye.